Hello, Gene Schwimmer here, and welcome back to the vlog. Okay, before my aging brain forgets, let me tell you first off, or let me ask you first off, if you like the video, do the thumbs up thing below the video to let the world, and especially the big cheeses at YouTube, to know that you enjoy this vlog, so they will think well of me. Also, if you really think well of me and you think this video has merit, I hope you'll share it with other people, and I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll get other people to subscribe. That would be nice. And let's see what else. If you have any comments, I would love to read your comments below the video and respond to them. I love hearing from you, and speaking of hearing from you, if there's any subject you would like my take on that you would like me to discuss, then by all means mention that also in the comments below the video, and I'll see if I can accommodate you and give you my take. Today I want to talk about Iran, specifically the nuclear program, our attempts to stop the nuclear program, and a suggestion that I want to offer, because that's what I try to do in these videos, is to offer a suggestion, an idea, a thought, an opinion, an angle that nobody else has thought of, or at least they may have thought of it, but it doesn't get mentioned much. I think we'll get the ball rolling on Iran with an op-ed that appeared just a few days ago in the New York Times by a gentleman named Clifford Krauss. Mr. Krauss makes the simple point, which should be obvious by now. If it's not obvious to the rest of the world, it is sure obvious to the Ayatollahs, that the sanctions that Trump reinstated, they're working. The Iranian oil exports have been drastically cut, and they're going to be cut even more. Now, what's interesting to note is that the experts predicted one of two things would happen. Either the sanctions would work and they would cause oil prices to skyrocket, or they would not work and the Europeans would go around the sanctions, would continue trading with Iran. Iran would not be hurt at all, and then the United States would be sitting there with egg on our face. Neither of those things happened, but there is an important two words that were in Mr. Krauss's op-ed. Those words were "so far." That is, that the sanctions are working so far. Will they continue to work in the future? That's the big question. It looks like they will, but you have Iran, they're determined to develop a nuclear weapon, and as dictators have shown throughout history, there really is not much, well, probably no limit to how much they're willing to let their own people suffer to pursue their aims. That brings us to the military option, which is the other option if these sanctions don't work. But actually, there is a third option, and this is a point that another gentleman, Yaakov Katz, makes in the Jerusalem Post. He basically reminds us that there was a time when Iran did stop their program, stopped it dead. When was that? That was when George W. Bush, invaded Iraq, and Iran was afraid that they would be next. So fearful were they of being next that they stopped their program cold. And that's the point that I want to make today. It's actually building on the point that Yaakov Katz made in his article, which is that if you have a credible threat of force, you don't have to use the force. Merely instilling the belief in the enemy that, number one, you have the means to exercise a military option. In the case of Iran, take out their entire nuclear program, probably take out their whole military if necessary. And number two, the willingness to do the former. That was the major flaw in the Iranian nuclear deal that our Democratic friends are so eager to return to, probably with no reciprocity at all on the Iranian side. And let's point out that even though we have left the deal, and even though Iran has threatened repeatedly to leave the deal, they haven't. I would say a big reason they haven't is because they're afraid of Donald Trump. They know he means business. If he says he's going to exercise a military option, they know he's going to do it. And that takes us back to the major flaw in the agreement that the United States and our European partners made with Iran, is that there was never a credible use of force, because they knew they had a weak president in Barack Obama. They knew that he would not use force. That was number one. Number two, well, everybody pretty much knows this, even if it's not really spoken. Democrats, liberals, love process more than substance. So if they sit down to negotiate an agreement with a hostile power, they have to succeed. They have to come away with some kind of an agreement, otherwise they feel that they've failed. This also stems from their belief that everything can be solved through discussion, that there is never a need to go to war. If for any reason, if there is a war between us and another power, it means somebody screwed up. The party that screwed up to the liberals invariably is us. All these other people, they're not doing anything wrong. We must have screwed up. We could not convince them to make an agreement because we're just bad people. The Iranians knew that going in. They knew that. I knew that. When people were debating whether an agreement would be reached, I knew an agreement would be reached because the negotiation on our side was being conducted by liberals, and that's the liberal mindset. There was never a doubt in my mind that there would eventually be an agreement. I also knew from experience, or not my personal experience, but by watching the former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, running after Yasser Arafat at the Clinton Camp David talks to convince him to come back to the negotiations, because they want a successful negotiation. So when you go in with that kind of a mindset, and with the other side knowing that, then there is no credible use of force. So that military option has to be on the table. Iran has to believe that, number one, we have the capability. Number two, that we will use that capability if we have to. Just the mere fact of having Donald Trump in the White House goes a long ways towards doing that. But there is more we can do. Number one, we all know who signed the nuclear deal with Iran, but nobody talks about that one party, the important party, the most important party probably, or possibly, or arguably, that did not sign that deal, and that's Israel. Israel, well, actually nobody signed the deal, it was never signed, but let's just say commit to the deal. Israel never committed to the deal. They were never at the table. The Iranians never in a million years would have spoken with them or sat down with the Israelis. So they're not bound by that deal at all. It has nothing to do with them. They would not be violating any kind of an agreement, written, promised, committed, tacitly and implicitly, any way you want to put it. They just have nothing to do with that. They could attack Iran tomorrow. They would be criticized for it, but nobody could say that they were reneging on an agreement or abrogating an agreement, because they were never part of the agreement. So step one is to give the Israelis bunker busters. Well, we already sold them F-35s, but everything that they need to make it clear to Iran that Israel has the capability of destroying Iran's nuclear program. I would also look at our mothball fleet of decommissioned aircraft carriers. They're obsolete as far as conducting warfare against a major power, but maybe they would still be good as missile launching platforms, especially if they're equipped with anti-missile missiles, as launching platforms for the Israeli Air Force, so that the Israelis could have one or more aircraft carriers stationed just outside the territorial limit of Iran, which would demonstrate to Iran yet another Israeli capability. They would not have to fly over Saudi Arabia which the Saudis would let them do. There's this illusion some people might have that the Israelis would have to go around, but they don't have to go around. What'll happen, it'll be just like Captain Renault in Casablanca, round up the usual suspects. If Israeli fighter jets fly over Saudi airspace, you can be sure the Saudis would have been informed beforehand, and maybe they'll scramble a few jets just for show, but somehow, miraculously, all the Israeli jets will get through. And then you say goodbye to Iran's nuclear capability, because they know that Netanyahu will have no hesitation to act if it's necessary, and he will have the whole Israeli public, except for the Israeli public on the left, of course, but most of the Israeli public will be on his side. Just knowing that the Israelis have the capability to destroy Iran's nuclear program, that's going to dissuade him right there. But if I were Donald Trump, I would order the Pentagon to work with the Israelis to develop a joint plan to attack Iran together, the two of us. I can't even imagine what Israel and the United States together could do to Iran, but I'm sure the Iranians can. And finally, getting back to Israel for a second, President Trump should also make very clear that they have a green light, that they don't even have to tell us in advance. Anytime that they feel the Iranians have gotten too close to a nuclear weapon, just go ahead and attack. Maybe give us a heads up within 48 hours after the attack, which of course means nothing because we'll know about it long before then. The point is that they would have a very credible threat from the Israelis, and if you follow my second suggestion, then you would have a very credible threat from the two of us. Step two, once the plan has been developed to jointly attack Iran's nuclear capabilities, the next step is, to the extent consistent with maintaining military secrecy, to rehearse the plan, to as openly as possible rehearse the plan, rehearse an attack on Iran, so Iran can see with their own eyes that we have not only formulated a plan, but we have been practicing it, that we could put it into action on a moment's notice if we have to. That's our best bet to stop Iran's nuclear program if the sanctions don't work, and short of having actually to attack Iran. Because as George W. Bush showed during the Iraq War, the mere threat, just a credible threat of military force, will stop Iran. We know because it did. That's my idea. I hope somebody in the Pentagon is watching this. I hope somebody in Israel is watching this. But who knows? I guess that's why you have to do the thumbs up and get as many people watching these videos as possible so that I can save the world. Chuck Norris and I cannot save the world alone. We really need your help. So thumbs up, share the video, give me your thoughts, tell me where I'm going wrong if you think I'm going wrong. If you want me to talk about something, ask me to talk about it. I take requests. That's it for now. I'll see you soon. Bye.